Notz.
Friedman.
The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscape streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before the board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not be fully resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of the building permits that are issued by the city need no board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging, sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business is approval of minutes from the December 4th, 2013 meeting. And I think everybody received these in their board packets. Okay, any questions, corrections? Okay. Would anyone like to move for approval?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The December 4th meetings are approved. The next item on the agenda is consideration of request for approval of a new single-family residence on a vacant lot located at 530 Ridge Road. The owners are J.D. and Shelley Sun, and the representative is Anthony Perry, architect. If you could come up, and before we begin, are there any conflicts on behalf of any board members that we have? Okay, great. All right. Petitioner, going ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Perry, and I'm the president of the A. Perry Builders and the architect as well for the project. And I brought here tonight the team, including our project, the project lead on the project for the Sun family, John Anstant and Renee Hensons. And we're going to lead off with John Anstant talking about the project and its context. Thank you.
Good evening. I do have a PowerPoint. Please tell me if I'm not loud enough, I'll speak up. First photo I have here is just the existing site. I just wanted to give you a few pictures of the site that we're dealing with. We are 530 Ridge Road. This is an aerial photo of the site. Our parcel is in between the two houses, just west of Ridge Road there, and the contours slope from Ridge Road down to the pond in back of the lot. My next few photos are going to be of the neighborhood homes. These are the homes that are north of our parcel. 500 is immediately north to us. We then have 464 Ridge, 424 and 433, all north of our site. Next are some houses that are south to us. 510 Broadsmore is immediately south to us, and 580 is a current home that was currently done, and that touches our parcel as well. And then 525 is the historic home. These are the opposite side of our parcel. 499, 470, and 461. And then the neighborhood. This is across the street, down by Saddle Run and Hunter Lane. Just a mixture of some homes that are in the area just so we can get a kind of a context of all the homes that are close. Our client came to us with these photos. These photos were their inspiration of the home that they were looking to build. This is a home in Lake Forest. I believe it's Shadow Pond is the name of the home. It's 14 North Waukegan Road. And as you can see, the house is an Italianate manor style home. Stone and stucco wall details. It is quite expansive. Here's a couple of nice aerial shots that show the mass of the house. It does have a Jen Jensen designed garden. That led us to the Italianate architectural style. That style has simple massing, hierarchy from the main body of the home, many coins, symmetrical arrangement, stucco body, low pitches, hip and flat roofs, projected eaves, large cornices, and in some cases balconies with iron railings. That led us to our proposed elevation. So again, the Italianate architectural style, we incorporated those details into our home. This is the color palette that we would like to go with. We do have slate roofs, we have copper eaves, copper ridges. We are proposing real limestone brackets. Windows we are proposing to be clad in black to mimic the early period windows. And my next few slides kind of show the house from a perspective of 6 feet off the ground. So I just wanted to give you the sense of how the house would look from that vantage point. Both of these views are from the front of the home. Next is the proposed right, left, and the rear elevation. And the columns in back again would be a limestone columns, again with coins and iron railings where appropriate. Again, where you want to do limestone veneer, stucco is the main body of the wall, slate tile roof, copper ridge, hips and valleys, copper gutters and downspouts, and black clad windows. My next slide is just kind of a streetscape of both the house to the south of us and to the north of us. And ours in the center. And I have 2 more slides for the presentation, and I'm going to have our landscape architect talk about those.
Just press next or quick? Okay, great, thanks. I am Renee Grassman Hensons of Hensons and Grassman Landscape Architects and Contractors. I'd like to just talk to you briefly about this site. John mentioned it slopes a little bit from the east to the west. It's about a 2% slope. It's about 13 feet over the length of about 2 football fields, if you can imagine that. It generally feels like a big open field. It is rimmed, I guess I would say, with really about a 100 canopy understory and a couple of evergreen trees. All 100 trees have been inventoried, evaluated, and tagged by a certified arborist. And all of those are shown highlighted in green. I have gone ahead and done a little analysis of those 100 trees and said that those that are of good condition, or average condition, actually average and better, and of a species that we'd like to keep, I've outlined them in black. So I believe you could probably see that. The trees that stand out as mature and significant start with this American elm, a bur oak, a cottonwood, 2 Siberian elms, and a Scotch pine. Interspersed in with the black rim are also red oaks, pin oaks, shagbark hickories, and eastern white pine. So an effort has been made here to preserve the natural character of the site, and the proposed residence was placed in a location where we would minimize disturbance to the mature trees. There are only 3, if this is the house right here, there are only 3 trees. There's a little X there, a little X here, and a little X there. Those are 3 of the trees, 2 American elm and 1 black walnut that would need to be removed. Consistent with that intention, the driveway is located in the only opening in the right-of-way where there are no trees that would need to be removed. The driveway is gravel, an ornamental gravel. It follows the topography from the southeast to the west. There are masonry piers and iron gates to the west of the 20-foot conservancy that runs along the right-of-way. The gravel driveway is centered on the courtyard, which, as you then approach, you focus on the front door. There are garden walls to the north, to the south, and to the east that define the edges. There are 2 autumn blaze red maples that anchor the east corners of the courtyard, and as vertical elements and visible through the openings in the wall, they will provide a foreground in the approach to the residence. There are green mountain boxwood planted as a hedge. They create a very traditional planting along the front facade, and PJM rhododendron provide substantial spring color in there, which you can see are a vivid red. The rear foundation mimics the front. There's boxwood in there as well, but we've used endless summer hydrangea instead of the PJM rhododendron, and 2 Bradford pear flank on the north and the south, which provide spring bloom and year-round structure. The bluestone terrace is dry set, and it really functions as an extension of the interior entertainment spaces. The perimeter planting in the front really acts as a transition from this very wooded and naturalistic streetscape to the more formal, traditional planted courtyard. To the north, really taking advantage of the full sun, is a wildflower planting of herbaceous prairie species. To the south, we've massed in autumn jazz airwood viburnum, which is a cultivar of the viburnum dentatum. Is that a timer? May I just finish quickly?
Sure, please.
Okay, thank you. To the north, from the entrance, from the start of the courtyard all the way to the west end of the terrace, there are Black Hills white spruce, eastern white pine, and Norway spruce that provide a continuous evergreen screen, and they are interplanted with Kentucky coffee tree and common hackberry, and underplanted with American hornbeam, black viburnum, and witch hazel. That approach is mimicked on the south side as well, but we've added cornelian cherry dogwood to that to add a little more depth to it. The western quarter of the property right here is, which encompasses the pond, and the woodland beyond remains as it is, with its diversity of canopy, understory shrubs, and herbaceous plants. Tony or John, do you have anything to add?
We're out of time anyways.
Then that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, there's identification of issues by staff.
Thank you, Chairman King. This is a request for a new single-family structure on a vacant lot. The lot was established about 20 years ago, but was subdivided off from the lot to the north. Until recently, the 2 lots remained in common ownership. Recently, the property to the north was sold, and the board actually reviewed a project at that location several months ago. And recently, this lot was purchased for the purposes of building a new single-family home on the lot. Because of that, we worked closely with the petitioner to site the home in a manner that allowed for adequate screening and additional plant material, especially along the north property line. Because that was seen as a single lot for so long, there were some voids along the north property line that the plan that the board is seeing this evening does address those initial concerns that staff had with this project. The location of the driveway was carefully selected to avoid mature trees. And the home, we looked at several different siting options with the garages on the north side, garages on the south side. And ultimately, this is the plan that the petitioner is bringing forward to the board for approval. Generally, the project is consistent with the standards in the code, consistent application of an architectural style, minimal impacts to grades. We've worked with them to reduce the amount of grading that's needed to allow for positive drainage on the site. So staff is recommending approval of the project as submitted, and I welcome any comments or questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Now's the time for the board for any questions to either the staff or the petitioner.
What is the height, maximum height?
The maximum height of the house is we're at 35 feet from the lowest point where we touch grade. So 35 feet.
Go ahead.
I've just got a couple questions. First of all, could you tell me what the roof pitches are that you're proposing?
The roof pitches are, I believe, are 1612.
And do you know how that compares to your inspiration home?
I do not.
Okay. And then the second question I have is on the section, I could tell that the second floor was a 9-foot ceiling height. Is that also the case for the the front, you know, the two-story elevation on the front, that, you know, that cornice line is taller? So is that second floor space?
So which area?
Top. Yep, front center. That
No,
fir-
they are the same.
That, so that, the taller eave height is just extended up in the attic, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
The garage doors, what materials are going to be used for the garage doors?
Wood material, we're gonna do a stained wood.
And the courtyard, as you enter, it's a square. Any problem with turning radius at all? I look at that and I think, I don't know if I can get my car around that.
It's a 60-foot radius, which is a cul-de-sac.
Okay. Thank you.
Which manufacturer windows?
Classic windows out of Libertyville.
Their profiles look much more like metal windows, that's why we like they have a special.
Look like Hope's windows?
What's that?
They look a little bit like Hope's?
Yeah, they have a much narrower profile. They look more like the metal windows, especially when they're black.
The trim detailing in the fascia under the soffit, that's stucco crown cornicing?
Yes.
And the limestone coins are true limestone.
I got a couple of questions. How you doing tonight?
Good.
I'm half Italian, so I looked at it and I liked it. But I got kind of two questions. One is, it seems to me that the middle section of the front is large, just in my view. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying it's large. I'm trying to find out kind of why. And the concern came up when I looked at it at the streetscape level as to how potentially this new unit is gonna dwarf the one to the north, which we just approved. Although they're gonna do a lot of work on it, it's gonna be much bigger. But it's gonna be, it seems like it's gonna be even higher to the house to the south. And the reason I'm saying that is that a lot of, it seems like this Italianate kind of style is the windows are a little bit smaller on the second floor and they hang a little bit below the roof line, so they don't really tie right into the kind of eave. And I'm just curious as to what necessitated putting that middle roof so much higher than the roofs on the left and the right?
Essentially, what we wanted to do by raising that portion was to break up some of the massing of a house. We didn't want it to feel like it was a long, wide house on the street. And the other thing too, just in terms of the context, from the street, if you notice the way, John, can you put the site? You won't be able to see the house, at least very obscured from the street. One, there's dense plantings in the front that's already existing. And then if you notice, the drive enters a little bit further south
Yes.
than the true axis of the front door. So there is a little bit of a jog that was introduced there. So as you peek in from, as you drive by, and Ridge is a pretty, heavily traveled road that
Yeah.
people drive more than 5 miles an hour on. So, not myself, I mean other people.
won't admit
and-
that.
Yes. And so as you pull up to the house, it would be difficult to be able to see. So I don't think its relationship in terms of what you see from the street, the true perspective, especially when it's set so far back. Perspective has a tendency to work for us on that. And the massing of the house to the south, that is far bigger than what we're doing. And part of it is just, we're looking to break it up, and as we broke it up widthwise, it does make it look a little bit taller, but keep in mind that the slate roof that we have is gonna be black and like charcoal gray, so that, especially the fact that it's on an angle, will help make it disappear into the sky. So that line that you see that reads as maybe 6 feet tall will really be much, much narrower because of the foreshortening that happens when you're walking up to it.
It's like the angle of view, I think is what you're
Yes,
saying.
and it's a little bit easier to see when you look at it perspective-wise, and those sketches there.
And then the plantings I noticed with the landscaping is gonna protect the north and south properties.
Right, we actually spent a great deal of time, and Renee can speak to it in great detail, but there's quite a bit of plantings that are going on both sides in order to allow them to breathe a little bit, and then also provide the privacy and screening that we would want as well if we were on that site. So it's just being good, good neighbor, and plus we think it also helps anchor the house a little bit. We want it to look like it's been there for a while.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions for the board?
Is the chimney, the south chimney for furnace flues and equipment?
Just decorative. We wanted the symmetry of having 2 chimneys there, so.
Will there be ice guards on the roof?
Will there be what?
Ice guards.
Oh, you're talking about to capture those? Yeah, we probably will, actually.
With a pitch like
Although,
that?
yeah, it is, but, it isn't a lot, but we should, at least over the front door, we will do it there. And the nice ornamental copper ones to match the gutters and downspouts.
I guess I have one more question, and just want to follow up with what Bob brought up. I think he brings up the topic of the front centerpiece, and perhaps the proportion of that is something that brings a little bit of a concern about. And one of the reasons why I asked what the pitch of your inspiration home was, because the image of that makes it looks like it's a different pitch. It's a more shallow pitch on the inspirational home. So I was wondering if you had tried a shallower pitch on this design, or any other pitch, and why you decided to go with this pitch, because to me it almost it looks more like a mansard roof than the more shallow hip roof of your inspirational home.
The main, yes, we did go with a lower pitch initially, and because the roof doesn't go up very high, we were wanting to convert from the pitched roof to the flat roof in order to, one, hit the height requirements, but also because just the shape and the massing of it. So when we did the lower pitch, the roof was kind of non-existent, actually, because how far back it is from the street. In order to see, you'll never see the house the way the elevation is.
Right.
You'll see it more how the perspective is, where as you walk up to it, the roof will just disappear. So, especially with going with a slate material, we thought going with tile would be a little bit busy for this, but and that was frankly more in keeping with that other house. It was the inspiration, we weren't slaves to it, but that's what the client brought in to get us down the path.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Now's the time. If anyone from the public would like to come up and speak on this petition? Okay. Seeing none. Anything else from the staff? Okay, great. Okay, time for, barring any further questions to the petitioner staff, time for board discussion and comment. Bob, you want to kick us off?
I like Italian houses. The only thing that struck me is, that was that massing, but the way you explained it with kind of the view angle, I can see where you kind of took that into consideration. I mean, it's a nice house. You know, like, you can always talk about additional details here and there, but all in all,
Yeah.
nice job.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think the siding of the house is nice, fits into the neighborhood. The materials are nice, high-quality materials. They did a nice job with the landscape plan and the screening from the neighbors, and the driveway location off of Ridge. So I can support it.
Okay. Great. Okay. Monica, any comments?
Well, overall, I think it's a great project. It's a very lovely house. It's consistent with, you know, the architectural style that you've chosen on all sides, and I think that's, you know, a very important part of our guidelines. Really the only concern I had was the roof pitch, because you know, in elevation, obviously, it looks more steep than what it would be in reality, but I also, you know, that is something also you will perceive. I mean, you're going to see that you have a more steeply pitched roof than maybe the Inspiration home. But having said that, I mean, I understand your reasoning for it. It's not something I would, you know, say, okay, we're not going to go with this. But other than that, I think all the detailing is consistent, and it's a nice project, and the landscaping was amazing. So.
I find the design very attractive, and I have nothing to add that hasn't been already said.
Okay.
The trees on the south side that are slated for removal, are any of those specimen?
No, there is really nothing on this property that is of specimen quality. The best we were able to identify were good. You know, they're rated, you're talking about all the existing trees, right?
Right.
They're rated from 1 to 5. We've analyzed everything that's a 3, which is average, 2, which is good, or 1 that's a specimen. There were no 1s, so there were no specimens. And the two of the 3 that would need to come out are American elm, and there is Dutch elm disease on the property. These just haven't been identified as been infected right now. The other third is a black walnut. It's a little bigger than the elms, but it's a very, very messy tree if you've had a black walnut in your property. There are new specimens being planted that don't produce the fruit. But,
You might sell the walnut for veneer.
okay. We'll make sure we
Have spikes
recycle
in it.
that. Okay, we'll recycle that tree.
What is your intent with the pond?
Right now, the pond is being left alone as it is. You can see this when you would be walking through from the front door. You can see the pond, you can see the woodland beyond. It's actually very pastoral looking. It's beautiful. And the intention is to leave it alone.
Will it be aerated?
It is currently. It is currently. It's in actually pretty good shape.
But yeah, the pond is actually pristine right now. The water's very clear, it's in great shape. It's a very healthy pond.
But I believe the massing, the scale, the integrity is nice. I support the home.
Well, I echo the sentiments. It's a very nice project. The materials are outstanding, really high quality. I think it's going to be a nice fit for the neighborhood along Ridge Road. You know, I was maybe a little concerned about the massing, but giving, maybe not the immediate neighbors, but the neighborhood in general. You go up and down a few blocks north-south into Broadsmore, and there's some rather large houses that I think this will be a perfect complement to. So I'm applaud the project, and I'm in favor of it as well. With that being said, do we have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of the plans for 580 South Ridge. It's submitted, subject to the recommendations of the staff under the report of January 13, 2014.
530 Ridge, just for point of reference.
Exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none? Petition's approved. Thank you very much.
It's my dyslexic name.
Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of a request for approval of modifications to exterior elevations, including material changes, the addition of dormers, and other alterations to the existing residence located at 255 Old Mill Road. The owner is Jeffery Arfsten. The representative is Jeffrey Letzter, architect. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you very much. One note of clarification, I am not an architect. I own Aspect Design Architects. My head architect, Charles Zamoro, could not make it tonight. I am the project manager for this project.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Tonight, what we are wanting to present to you tonight in your packet is an existing home that at Old Mill Road that we would like to make only exterior modifications to the home. The home, a little background, the home was built, I think, late 60s, 1969. I think at the time it was a speculative home at the time. Current owners have maintained the home very nicely, but really want to update and kind of bring forward current style, detail elements, and material elements of a more natural look. Currently the home, you want to try to plug this in? We'll put up some photos of the existing home so you get a flavor of the current house. Bear with us, please.
We actually have, I'm George Norps. I'm the general contractor for the house in Nantucket Homes. And I've done a lot of building here in Lake Forest. I've been before the board quite a few times. So. And as soon as I get my cable connection to go in here. We tested this out before. There it is. Jeff, why don't you start? Okay, and then I'll get the rest. It's just a matter of getting the cable connection. Here it comes.
Here comes cavalry.
Press the red button.
Okay. Sorry for that. And you can see, we're going to run through some of the elevations here, and I have a number of pictures of it. But the owner, when we first got into discussions about this, really was concerned about you can almost see it. The setback of the door is makes it a very, very dark entrance, and so we were looking to be able to improve the front entrance. We also wanted to improve the dormers, and really, we've been working with the staff on the design for this for quite a long time, getting their input and working back and forth. So we've gone, and Jeff will show you several of the iterations. But as we look at this, here's what is the left side elevation, and we're looking.
No, that's front.
Front elevation, I'm sorry, yeah, the front elevation. And the dormer structure, there's 3 current dormers that are here, and we're looking to be able to modify these dormers. And the garage structure, you can see the very large open roof structure, and we had, in the process, you'll see the dormers that we propose to small dormers to be able to give some character to this roof in addition to a cupola that we're proposing. And you can see the structure of this is very much 1969, 1970, kind of structure. The masonite material, that's not stucco, that's on the material. That's masonite, and it's in very poor condition. It's peeling and really should really be replaced. And we're proposing to replace it with real stucco. And so our combination of materials that we'll be using for the exterior will be a combination of real stucco and thin veneer stone, which you may or may not be familiar with, but I have samples of it. And it looks it's all real natural stone, but is considerably less than traditional stone in the installation of the stone. So. And Jeff, I think what we'll do is
Let me run through kind of proposes. Why don't you just leave this on right now? This is a good shot of kind of the front and left side where those 3 top dormers. We want to actually remove those, replace that with one larger element. And again, over the front door, which is kind of a sloping roof with a hip over the front, we want to open that up also. Go to the other front. And then those 3 dormers, we want to also modify those. And there's a kind of unusual, which we couldn't even figure out. There's a 1 bay window on the front of that house. Go back to, I want to show. Keep going, one more, I think. Right here. There's 1 bay window there. To the right of that is just a solid brick wall. So let me go to.
It also should be noted that this pine tree is really kind of overgrown, and we're planning to remove it and to add some character in addition to an additional box bay window to match this existing bay. So. Why don't you go ahead? You want to show a little location and stuff?
I'd like to.
How
do we flip this over?
Oh, here, I'll just flip this.
Oh, we got it.
I'll pull it out. Okay, there you go.
This is our proposed front elevation where we are adding bay window here, modifying the 3 current dormers, modifying the front porch, pulling it back, raising the roof, adding a dormer detail, completely removing the other 3 dormers there, revising that as a detail, adding dormers to break up this mass of a roof here, 3 dormers, new garage doors, cupola, all stone on the body, the 2-story main section of the home, stucco stone on the 1-story elements. This, you see the angle of the garage and the left side elevation. We're bringing stone into the main body of the 2-story. We're adding roof returns, which are currently, there's nothing there now, to break up the stone, and then the interplay with the stucco on the top. And again, you can see here where we're changing this front porch to bring that back and open it up to let a lot more natural light in. This is a right side elevation where we're continuing the stone banding, stone on the 1st floor, stucco on the 2nd, roof return, stucco. This is a current existing pergola that's already built. Rear of the home, bringing the stone stucco all the way around on the lower one-story garage, stone along the body. This is an entire sunroom, which is basically mostly glass. Stucco at the top elements here, and kind of transitioning right here between adding the new stone over the existing brick and new stucco with a little flare detail right through here. There's our front. And just give you a sense of the siting of the house, of the site itself. This is Siri here, Old Mill, and you can see how the garage is on that angle. So this view coming in is the important elevation that we definitely wanted to focus on, and then wrap all the materials all the way around to be consistent with stone and stucco, and really bring the house up to a much different look from what it's currently sitting at.
You want to show the, this?
And just to also show currently, this is the site that we're working on right across the street. 3 years ago, we did this home with an exterior modification. A year and a half ago, we did this home with an exterior modification. Now, both of those didn't go in front of your board because we didn't really change dormers or change a lot of massing to the house. So we have been diligent in updating the street. Anything you want to add, George?
I think the character of the house is really important here, and it's important, I think, that to note that the houses that we have modified up and down the street, we have really improved the exterior of these homes significantly. I mean, these were homes which, you know, the homeowners were very, I would say, unhappy with the exteriors, and not really a good identity to the Lake Forest community in terms of what they proposed. I think this is a very good modification to the house, and fairly interesting detail that we have with regard to it. So.
Oh, and one last thing I just wanted to bring up was the basic whole thought process of the French country flair to this house. Again, we were kind of using, obviously, the existing high-pitched roofs, details, large gables, and we really felt that a country French would work with this current style of home with adding the new materials and details. Again, adding timbering, new front entry, details of a country French. We're being a little whimsical here with these dormers. We're tying in some radius with pitches to match the large pitch and gables of these roofs. And one thing we were trying to do is break up some of this massing of the current front home, which is a very large roof system. And all the current roof is a cedar shape, which we're going to be maintaining. Anything else, George? I think we could close it up and bring it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman King. Excuse me. This is a unique request before the Building Review Board. The request is to update the home as the petitioners described with new materials, some changes to the massing of the roof forms, and the addition of some additional architectural elements to the home. From the staff's perspective, this type of project really falls in the details and making sure that the placement of the materials makes sense and doesn't appear applied, and it still falls within the traditional detailing that is common in Lake Forest, and that projects follow the residential design guidelines in terms of simplicity, adherence to an architectural style, hierarchy of massing. And I think it's challenging to do that when you're working with existing massing. The petitioner has done a good job of identifying some problem issues with the existing house, the blank brick walls, the entrance that's not very prominent to the street, the long roof form of the garage. And I think the board could really help with getting the details to really work for this project. Staff has offered some suggestions in the staff report, really to try to simplify the architectural detailing, so there's a consistent application of roof types, whether it's arched, gable, or hip roofs, just trying to bring a level of simplicity to the overall project. With that, I welcome the board's comments and questions. I'd be happy to answer any that you have this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay. Questions from the board to the petitioner staff?
You had mentioned you have the veneer stone samples?
I do. Let me show you these. And, you can see, these were normal stones. Now this is real natural materials. This is real stone material. And the difference is that this is a new kind of technology that we've been dealing with for several years in the application of putting a stone or a brick veneer.
Sorry, yes, could you approach the mic, please? Thanks. No problem.
This is a new kind of technology that we've been working with and had great success with it in terms of applying this kind of material without having to go to increasing the size of the foundation. And we use a specific type of material on the substructure of the house, and we actually take off the existing masonite and replace it with cement board. And I have a special applied type of masonry concrete that adheres this to the exterior of the building. And so the actual weight of the additional stone, although this is about 1/3 the weight of normal stone, it's still heavy. But we've had great success with it. We haven't even had one piece of stone move off any of the buildings that we've done. So.
And you, as far as application, does it go over the existing brick as well? Or
yes.
It does?
Combinations of that, yes.
Okay. And is that the color, the actual stone you want
yes.
to use, or no? Or just
yes,
kind of
no, this is the actual color. This is, and there's another sample of it. And we actually will use kind of a blended, a blend of, these actually from a texture standpoint have a slight little bit of difference between them. We want to be able to add that kind of texture to the building. So, but the color scheme will be pretty much this color stone and that color stucco. And that under the bright light comes out a little bit lighter than what it actually will appear on the house. So it's actually going to come out a little bit, it's an off-white kind of stucco color that we'll be using.
I think you might have had a representative picture or two, color pictures of some houses.
Yes, we do.
Could you put those up on the screen, please?
Yes.
And also, too, I'd like to just point out from a detailing side of this, at the corners of this, there's actually exterior corners of this, so you never see the thickness of the stone. So there's actually an exterior corner that looks like a normal bed depth stone. And even at sill details, we'll be using limestone sill details.
Okay, thank you.
Has there been, let me back up a moment. The attic space does that occupy the upper portion of both main roofs?
Of this element? Oh, you're talking, George? Yeah, that element is just strictly attic. There's the second floor, like the top of those dormer windows you see there. That's basically the top of the second floor. Then it's just rafters going up.
Unfinished
just
attic.
Yes.
Was there any consideration given to lowering the ridge?
No, we're trying to stay within kind of the bounds of the existing framing and the house itself without changing major roof lines of the home itself. So if we were to do that, we were basically ripping off the entire roof to redo something like that.
Now, I took a lot of these pictures and, just make the board aware of it. This is relatively new technology that we're using here. This is all cloud technology. So this is actually, we're connected through the internet, and, it's pretty nice to be able to have availability of this much data. But I've been downloading, like 3,500 pictures, and I don't have all of them downloaded yet. But I have most of them for this house. But I have this comparison here. In 1 second here, I'll get to it. Thought it was right. Oh, maybe it is, yeah. I think it's back in the individual. Yeah, here.
Are there some other questions the board wants to ask while we dig up the photos?
Okay.
What is the thought behind the cupola and its reference to the home?
The cupola I wanted to introduce into that long mass of the lower roof of the garage portion. And it's kind of even interesting, the original house plans had a cupola design in it. Now, it wasn't centered and didn't make a lot of sense and wasn't very tall, but it was never built, never installed. And to me, the first thing I drove up and looked at this, and it kind of screamed, I want to have a cupola there. And it really fits with that whole style of design of a country French style. And to us, adding those dormers in that garage, over that garage wing, was really also a big important a feature. I mean, again, it's purely aesthetics.
Now, I'm going to get here sooner or later.
Yes, sir.
With the amount of veneer that's going up, there's absolutely nothing you need to support it from beneath. It strictly whatever's being applied against that brick face that's there now is all it needs to support it, the weight.
That's correct.
Yes, that's right.
On the east elevation and west elevation, on the east elevation, you carry the brick veneer up the full, what looks to be almost the full 2 floors. On the west elevation, you only carry it up the one, through the first story. Is there a reason you departed from that?
Yeah, let me, on the, addressing the east, again, we brought the stone up to that second story. So I was trying to address the front section of this house more as the mass of the house with the stone. The rear elevation and on the west, we do have that lowered only at the 1-story element. Couple reasons there. There is, at that point, that's where the brick and kind of siding do mesh. We could bring it all the way over because we are doing that. But again, I was trying to limit some of the stone wrapping all the way around this house.
My only other question is, the second floor above the garage, is that living space or just, is it usable attic space or what is?
No, that is just attic.
Just the attic.
Yeah.
So with that said, how do you intend to address the window and the view to framing within the attic?
The windows, we would do a kind of a box beyond, finish off kind of inside the dormer, so you're not looking.
Drywall?
Yeah. And a lot, or a lot of times we'll even paint black on there, set back. So you're not looking through any rafter connections or framing or anything that way. It's gonna look similar if you kind of peer through a dormer of any home, unless there's lights or something else on there, you really kind of just see the blacked out vision of the house.
Okay, now these are the color schemes that you're proposing to use. These are actually 2 Lake Forest houses, I believe, so. But we went around and really worked with our customer on these to be able to make sure that they were in agreement with the color scheme that we're proposing, and so we did get their approval on that. So,
That would be with white windows as well? Are the windows being replaced, or are they?
well, the garage windows are new, and the manufacturer is either going to be Anderson or Pella, one of those two manufacturers. We right now have Anderson windows. The owner recently just did some window replacements with Andersons, so we'll either use Andersons or Pella.
But the existing are staying,
The existing windows are staying, yes,
and they are white.
correct.
And then all the timbers are just natural cedar?
Yes, yes.
I've got some questions. Firstly, I would really like to go back to the staff report and their staff recommendation regarding the massing of the home. And I personally think it's very important to listen to staff when they have recommendations, and as board members, I think most of us, tend to look at that
Right,
in
yeah,
a
we
great
review-
manner.
yeah, we
So they've recommended that the front massing be simplified and the dormers display some consistency throughout. Have you taken any of that into consideration?
Yeah, actually, we have. We were running, and I apologize, a little bit on a time kind of crunch delay to get our materials in. And then when the staff report came to us, we didn't have a lot of time to get anything back in front of you. We kind of missed some deadline dates. But we have been working on different, even dormer kind of concepts and designs, even from the very beginning. Can you switch that, please, Megan?
Yeah.
Megan? Thank you. This was an iteration we were working on where we had radius dormers, and actually at the time we had even flared, like a shed, coming down again to help kind of break up that roof, and then kept a continuous radius into that over those pieces. So we have been looking at different things, especially after the staff recommendations. We take those very seriously also.
Right.
And again, and it was just literally timing. We literally got the staff report a few days ago, and we're trying to react quickly to come in front of you folks.
Okay.
But we're definitely looking at these things, and I think are willing, and more than willing, to review and work with staff to get those details correct.
Okay, because to me, that seems like the most important issue you have here is the facade of the house and having a consistent architectural style with consistent detailing throughout. And although you're saying that the style is French country, to me, it seems like just like a neo-eclectic mix of all sorts of pieces. So I'm glad to hear that you would be willing to work more closely with staff on that. My fellow board members bring up, good points about this, the thin veneer stone and the detailing of that. So I think that's going to be very important as well when this moves forward. And if the windows are existing and they're going to stay, and then you're going over that with that thin brick, you're going to have to do something with the brick mold, the jam detail of that, because then you're going to have that edge of stone. And all of these things are really important for the home. So I think we'd need to see details of that. And I don't want to go into too many details about some of the front, because I have a feeling it might change. For example, the dormers, you have this like arch in the stucco. Like, what is that arch? Is that revealed? Is that is that recessed? So this sketch doesn't really give me all the details that I'm kind of looking for to feel confident about moving this project forward. But mostly, I really just want to reiterate that I feel it's important to listen to staff. And the front massing of the house is just, seems overly complicated. And then the other point that they bring up is the multiple uses of different materials. You've got the stone, you've got the stucco, and then you're keeping some brick. And I mean, is that something you would also be willing to look at, you know, like limiting the amount of materials?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the brick that we were initially proposing was the existing brick chimney. Now we were adding stone up kind of to a base, and then we were looking at maybe just painting the brick to match the stucco color. I think we'd be more than happy to look at, you know, doing another stucco element, covering that piece, you know, playing with some stone detail. Again, I'm a little concerned about maybe necessarily running stone up to be a real heavy piece on that side, where I think this,
Right.
a stucco could look a little lighter and a little bit more comfortable there.
Right, and just I mean, I don't know how much stone can bear on that brick. I mean, the brick is not really load-bearing for that purpose, so. But in any case, I'm just looking at the design guidelines and the limitation of the different types of materials that we use, and, you know, the design guidelines of the simplicity of form, so.
Great.
Yeah, I'm gonna mimic those comments. One of the things that we gotta comply with this board is, the standards set out in the code itself. One of them is elevation, one of them is materials. And what's been talked about already is the biggest issues we have, including the fact that this house is sitting front and center, and it's gonna be highly visible. So it kinda heightens our responsibility regarding the. I definitely think you're going in the right direction. I'm glad you're working with staff. I think one thing you guys should really pay attention is the continuity of the roofs and the continuity of any dormer you put in there, so it's all consistent. The different elevations of the stonework, I think you should have that more consistent, not 3 or 4 different elevations in the front and the sides. One of the things is they're supposed to do a proportional elevation. It's one of the things under elevations. There's also a thing with harmonious kind of colors and accents, details, ornamentation, and that's gonna tie you in again to the dormers, the work you're gonna put on the chimney. You can't have too many. 2 materials is great. If you get into 3, then it causes some problems. But I think you're on the right track.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, staff? Would anyone from the public like to come up? Okay. Staff, any final comments? Okay. Comes back to the board as discussion item, and maybe a little direction here. It sounds like, and I agree with some of the comments here, I think, especially hearing that the petitioner really was a little forced on the timing here to get maybe some of the changes they envision here. I think, personally, I think this is a continuation to allow them to address the staff and board's comments here with special emphasis on some of the things that outline the report. And Monica, and I do feel strongly that this is a very busy front facade that really needs some cleaning up here. I think once we're done here, it's going to be a nice modernized home, and that's what's going to be great. It's going to be nice for the neighborhood, but I think there needs some heavy lifting to be done here in a lot of different facets. One thing we didn't comment on, and I'll pose it as a question, the front facade, between the 2 bay windows, there's I want to say it says stucco panel. I can't really see very well from the, no, to the right. Yeah, what is, can I just ask what that is?
That was just a relief in the stone as a pattern piece.
Okay, and that's stucco as proposed now? Okay, it's tough to read. I will say the materials before the board too are pretty tough, guys, to read. If we could have a little cleaner presentation next time, and a color scheme I think would be very helpful as well for the board to look. It was nice, the materials and the representative things, those are very helpful, but the more you can kind of show us the end product, not just in black and white, I think that'd be helpful for us to kind of see your vision as well when you come up here. That's my 2 cents. Unless people want to vote on it now, I think continuing this motion probably makes the most sense.
I agree.
I agree.
I'd like just in.
And
Chairman
anything else
King,
you
if I
can,
can
more
mention
direction, I'm
one
sure would
more
be great,
item.
yeah.
I'd encourage you to contemplate perhaps a unification of those dormers above the front entry. I understand that that relates to the interior as well, but maybe perhaps there's a way to architecturally not impact the interior, but unify the exterior, so it's less busy, unification, consolidation. There's a lot of moving parts here. And I believe a unification of those dormers might also tend to bring the massing down of the roof structure as well.
One of the things that we did in the process here, and like I said, we've had several iterations with the owner, with regard to this, and part of our design really is, has been the collaboration with the owner on this. And the owner is a commercial builder, and who understands, and matter of fact, he was one of the main builders of the Trump Tower. So I respect his opinion greatly about this. In some cases, I was not altogether agreement on, never, I always like to give my own input. And so at least I'd like for you to see what, one of my inputs was. You want to put that up there?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you do that? So at least the board will have an idea. I mean, this is, it's a little bit hard to be able to see, but you can see how we softened the dormers and softened the entryway by providing a radius on it, and providing I consider to be a more consistent kind of detail. Now you got to understand this was an earlier elevation, but this is more in line with what the board I think is looking for too, right? I mean, it's kind of what your comments are, and the staff's comments too. Am I misreading that?
I think it's improvement. I don't know if that's something that the board would approve along those lines or not.
No, I think
Yeah,
we're just trying to demonstrate that we have.
I mean, there's a little more uniformity with the arches. Now the left-hand side dormer looks a little odd, I would say, but again.
Yeah, I think, like if you'd have some inspiration or some images of French country architecture, with simplified roof forms that you're inspired by, that could be something that could be part of the packet. There's like three pieces to that, and they really don't relate to each other. There's no like what's the most important part? Where is the entry? It looks like kind of like three little homes stuck together. So somehow it's your mission to unify it and make it, a beautiful French country home. Even though it's a remodeling, that doesn't mean that it can't be amazing when you're done. And I think, I'm positive you can do it. I just think it needs to come back to the board with that effort.
Thank you, gentlemen. So do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we continue this petition.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none?
Thank you.
Motion is continued. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much
your
for
efforts.
time tonight.
The fifth item on our agenda this evening is the consideration of a request for approval of demolition of an existing residence and approval of a replacement residence and landscaping at 350 Everett Road. The owners are Fran and David Dorfman, Representative Scott Renken, architect. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Scott Renken, President of Renken Architects and Builders here in Lake Forest, and I'm here with my design team, Omar Gutierrez, who works with my company, and Jason Quigley with Wright Landscaping. And we're here representing Fran and David Dorfman for a home at 350 Everett Road in West Lake Forest. It's just about a quarter mile west of Ridge Road on Everett, on the north side. You got that? Okay.
We're kidding now. I have a bad mouse.
We'll have to blame it on Jason.
We have a backup.
All right.
There is a house on the property that was built in the early to mid-'60s, and so this is a two-part. It's a demolition and a new structure.
Okay.
So, and we have certain items that we can show you tonight that wasn't in your packet. We did a 3D colored model, which we can show many views of the home later in the presentation. So if you want to go to the next slide. The criteria for demolition, there are 5 criteria which we have all met. The first is no special cultural significance. It's not a home that's properly not maintained and possesses no distinctive architectural features. Number 2, realistic alternatives do not exist. We've explored a lot of things. Cost to renovate would be very high due to grading and structural issues outlined in the third-party engineering report. And to bring the existing home to today's functional standards would require numerous changes. Number 3, the structure is not ideal for residential use. As I said, it hasn't been maintained. There's animal waste and associated odors have permeated into the building floors and walls, and there are major water issues due to the sinking of the foundation. One of the things I'll point out in my structural engineering report, it appears that the actual foundation, not just the grade around it, but the foundation has sunk between 4 to 6 inches over the course of the last 40 years. So the sidewalks have actually cracked and they're tilting towards the house. And so number 4, the demolition and replacement will not adversely impact the value of the property within the neighborhood. And we believe the replacement structure will in fact improve and add value to the neighborhood. Number 5, the replacement structure will be compatible with and not adversely impact the character of the neighborhood. The new home is compatible with the homes along Everett Road because they are well screened by mature vegetation and set on large lots. The proposed structure will fit in approximately the same area as the existing structure and will not adversely impact the streetscape. The proposed materials are widely used in the surrounding neighborhood, and the proposed home will blend in with its surroundings and add to the existing charm and ambience of the neighborhood due to its scale and style. Okay. This is a site plan of the existing home. It's approximately 97 feet from the front property line, and it's about the same siding, which we'll get to in a minute, of the new home, and it's within a foot of the width of our new home also. So our new home, proposed home, will be in approximately the same pad, although it is a slightly bigger footprint. This shows the neighborhood. The lots, the lot, it happens to be 62,249, which is about an acre and 1.4 acres, and it's very consistent with homes along Everett Road. The replacement structure siding, the grade changes will not affect the neighboring properties. No grade changes near the property line. The proposed home, as I explained earlier, is set in similar location to the existing structure. And this shows you the site plan of the new home. One difference is we are maintaining the curb cut on the east and adding another curb cut for a U-shaped type of driveway to the west, and we picked a strategic location where there are very small or non-existent trees. There are X's on the trees that are to be removed. You can see the two up on the east side, which would be in the driveway pad, and then 3 or 4 down where the new drive would come onto Everett Road. And these are all 1 foot or smaller, and not great specimens. We are maintaining the vast majority of all the trees on the site. It happens to be heavily screened, and Jason Quigley can get a little bit more into the landscaping a little bit later. The grading plan, we are maintaining the existing grades around the site, except for one exception. We propose to raise the house approximately 1 foot, about 11.5 inches from where the previous home was. And as I mentioned earlier, the existing home seems to have sunk, and there's a real problem. I did contact, we had this engineered by Dolan Engineering in Palatine, and he couldn't be here tonight, but he has a statement that tells why the necessity is to raise the home, and I'll read that to you. He couldn't be here tonight. However, I would like to offer that the proposed foundation should not be lowered because there is a very shallow drainage way just northeast of the house, which is at about elevation 687. This drainage way is so flat that stormwater runoff barely trickles out of it for a period of time after a rain. To protect our new house from adverse effects of the water, we need to raise the grade around the foundation, which will reduce the permeation of water getting towards the foundation and drain tile. The elevation of our foundation, raised by 1 foot over the existing foundation, will have absolutely no detrimental effect on any neighboring properties or the roadway. Okay? So let's go to the next one. And now we can get into the elevations of the home itself. The owner did not want a symmetrical structure, a formal structure, but we wanted to maintain order, and yet we want some informality. It's inspired by an eclectic mix of English Tudor and English country. They are fond of some of the architecture in Conway Farms, and they wanted a similar feel. So we have the 1.5-story feel from the front, and it tapers down towards the edges with the main massing in the center. The elements are consistent with this style, which are highly pitched roofs and variegated roof lines. There are bay windows in the front to soften. Casement windows are grouped into triples and doubles, which are typical of this architecture. The front is on the top, and on the lower part is the right side elevation. If you want to flip to the on the lower part on your screen is the rear. It's a combination of stucco and brick and wood siding for the fascia, soffit, and friezeboard. The entire first floor is brick, and the stucco elements are in the dormer in the front and in the second-story elements in the back. I have some material samples here if you'd like to see them. Like I said, the brick walls and chimney The brick is in the walls and the chimney with limestone accents. The stucco is on the second floor in the dormer. The roof will be an architectural asphalt shingle in weatherwood color. The fascias, we propose a product called LP Smart Trim, which is a substitute for wood. It's used by many builders. It's been around for, I'd say, 10 or 15 years. It looks to us exactly like wood. We're not stuck on that. It's either cedar or LP Smart Trim, and it's textured on one side and smooth on the other. When it's painted, it looks exactly like cedar, but it maintains very well over the years. It doesn't cup like wood would. We are proposing wood-clad casement windows in a taupe color, and the trim would be taupe, and pre-finished aluminum gutters and downspouts, and poured concrete patios and walks. This is, it shows some of the pictures, maybe inspiration around, these are all photographs from Lake Forest. The one on the lower left isn't a great picture, but it's sort of indicative of the color of the brick. We want a lighter brick with a little bit of a speckly texture to it. The house, the color theme would be all warm, so we want warm taupes in the windows, in the trim. The stucco would contrast with that. It wouldn't be white. It would have a little bit of warmth to it, but more of a whiter color. The home in the middle, I think it's on Country Lane, is not indicative of the style, but indicative of a brick color that the owner really likes. And the other examples are just examples of the variegated, steep-pitched gables in this type of architecture. This is a streetscape elevation, which shows sort of a drastic change as you go from east to west. The street goes down. And even though we are proposing raising the foundation by a foot, the structure to our left is still, I think, 4.7 feet above ours. And the structure to our west, to our left, is close to 3 feet lower than ours. So as the homes go from east to west, each home is further down. And so we're proposing raising it, but it would not adversely affect any of the neighborhood properties. This is the current home, a picture of the current home that was built in approximately 1965. This is a view to the east. I think that the U-Haul trailer has been there for as long as I can remember. And that's the subject property. That's the rear of the subject property. This is the east side of the subject property. And view from the streetscape, this is taken even in the winter when the leaves are off. You can see how densely forested it is. It's really hard to see the home. I don't think you'd really see it. You might catch a small glimpse of it in one of our curb cuts in the summer, but that's it. It's hard to even see it in the winter. There are dense vegetation around all sides of the property. This is a view of the street looking west, and view looking east. This is the straight-on view of the west neighbor, which is, again, I think it's a early 70s or late 60s split level. There it is. And this is the other neighbor to the east, which is, I think it was built in 2006 or 2007. It's a French, I would say a French provincial style home. And it's considerably higher in elevation than ours. Now we have different perspectives of ours that are not in your packet. It may give you a better view of our home, the proposed home, from all the angles. We'll just take you on a little tour around the home. This is a view going to the left side elevation. And that's the rear of the home from the other angle. It keeps moving around. There's the garage side, the 3 garage doors and the roof extending down with brackets. There's another view of the east elevation from the front angle. And that's the front looking almost a little more straight on view. So Jason, would you like to say anything about the
I
landscape?
think I'll reserve any comments for questions that the board might have for us pertaining to the landscape. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Staff, your report, please.
Thank you, Chairman King. This request is for the demolition of the existing home and design of and siting landscaping for the replacement structure. With respect to the demolition, the petitioner has provided adequate information for staff to recommend approval of the demolition this evening. Staff has actually been inside the structure and concurs that it really is not in a livable state as it exists today. The replacement structure that's proposed, in general, is consistent with the ordinance standards. I think the home is compatible with other structures along the street. There could be some additional refinements to the massing and architectural details with respect to the rhythm of openings consistently applied to the structure and the roof massing. I do thank the petitioner for providing a 3-dimensional exhibit for the board this evening. I think this is a project that's was really challenging to look at in 2D and really visualize how those masses would come together. With respect to the landscaping, I'll just add a couple comments. I know we've had discussions with the petitioner about the landscaping. The perimeter of this property is densely wooded. My understanding is the intent is to maintain that dense perimeter, and the staff recommendation is to really evaluate the property at the time of a rough framing inspection, so the structure has already taken shape, and really identify key areas where landscaping will be critical to help improve and increase the landscape buffer that exists today. So I would ask that the board provide their comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Questions from the board to staff and/or the petitioner? Ross, you've been leading the charge all night, so I'm going to let you run with it.
Charging? What style would you call this?
I would say it's an eclectic combination of English Tudor and English country.
Was there any consideration given to providing interest to the roof lines, character? Would it modify that style considerably if a little French curl was added, or you know, I'm struggling with the elevation in terms of its character. The garage bay is the most prominent feature of the front elevation, which in one sense is beneficial because the garage is so prominent, so it tends to add interest to the garage, but we don't see any consistent character like that elsewhere in the home that's that strong. Maybe, you know, suggesting perhaps there might be.
Well, that particular bay in the garage is repeated 2 other times on the front. It may not be evident, maybe if we change the angle, that, as you can see over on the left side,
The living room.
the second floor in the largest area of the home projects over in the stucco area, and then that roofs over a bay. There's a bay right there, and then there's a bay just like the garage with a little sloped copper roof on the right there. And those 2 bays are identical with little brackets that hold up the roof to give it some character. And that's another bay. It's obviously it's not roofed because the second floor protrudes over. So.
Is it cedar shingles?
No, it's architectural asphalt shingle is proposed. in weatherwood, which looks like similar to a cedar shingle, but the owner prefers that material.
Is there any thought of moving that garage back? I mean, it's just protruding so much out front, and I think, Ross, where you're getting to, it just kind of in your face a little bit as you look at that front facade. I don't know how much further that is out than the other element there in the front, but it is poking out there.
I think one thing that wasn't added on this, there are windows on this elevation which somehow didn't get in this. That's sort of a blank look, but I know there are windows there.
It certainly
I
helps.
would say it probably protrudes out 10 to 12 feet. The landscape plan. Just want to look at the plan. Yeah, I would say it looks like about at least 12 feet that it projects from the house. That had to do with, the way the floor plan laid out and, to create some articulation in the front. It is a garage, but it doesn't look like a garage from the front, from the side.
The driveway is asphalt?
Yes.
Were there any alternatives to the front elevation in terms of reducing the mass of the garage from the front?
Well, we looked at a hip. A hip reduces the mass instead of a gable. And
Do you have that as an example, or?
we don't have, I don't have that here. We certainly could look at that. That is, possibly a hip with a dormer popping out of the front, and maybe we repeat that, that dormer that's in the middle. I've done that before, and it certainly is a lot less massive than, than having a gable pop out at you. We looked at that, and we thought maybe the gable was a little more consistent with this architecture, but we do have, hips. The main body of the roof is a hip, so it's not foreign to this. And we would certainly be willing to look at that.
Yeah, I've got some comments myself. When you look at that front elevation, it seems like you have three major gables. And the one to my left, looking at the picture, you've got a double on that one on the left.
Mm-hmm.
But that double has created basically a stripe of the white material. So I think that's thrown me off a little bit. And I think the comments my colleagues have made is, maybe this is where we're going with this, is shove back the garage 10 feet so that it sticks out as much as that far left gable, get rid of the double gable, and then if you look on the garage, that garage roof is so long that you need to break it up a little bit for that elevation. Maybe you throw a couple of the dormers along that garage roof, and those dormers on the right, you'd see the roof line of the little mini dormers going out, and then you'd pick up that front dormer. And I'm not saying that's a solution, I'm just saying that it's too much in the front, and I'm concerned about that long garage wall. It's
From the left or from the right?
be your east elevation, I think.
Okay, with this one, with the garage doors?
Yeah, exactly right. It's so long, so if you could break that up a little bit. And
Well,
then-
there's a couple of things that I could do there. I've thought about this, because staff, that's one of the comments that the staff had, and we take those seriously also.
That's all I got.
Possibly beyond the garage doors, maybe there's a bump in the house to create a gable to break that whole side up, that goes up into the roof, and you have a triangle of stucco. In addition, we may consider a couple of gables in addition to that. So a combination of something like that, I agree, would maybe break up. I think the front is broken up enough. This is, if you call it, say, a problem side, this side needs to be looked at. And I don't know if it's a combination of hipping the front, and if you hip the front, maybe we hip the back too there, I don't know, we'd have to look at that side. I think we could definitely break that side up without moving the garage back, but by adding elements on that side that soften that long mass.
Offsets.
It just seems, it's turned out to be a beautiful house, and it just seems that have that garage sticking so far out kind of detracts from it a little bit. That was one of my comments. The other comment was, I'm really concerned about the grading issue, raising the grade. Have you talked to the city people about that?
I don't know if the staff, if that was, the recommendation was based on their input or from the engineering input. But our engineer will certainly work with the engineers on Lake Forest's staff.
Great.
And we'll, as an architect, I don't care, I just want it to work. You know, I don't want them to build a new house and have the same issues that are there now. And he's saying we will have the same issues that are there now if we put it in the same exact place.
Although you have a neighbor that's submitted a letter providing a warning about her current issue, and if you raise the home a foot, that will certainly help the drainage on your property, but that needs to be looked at carefully as it relates to the neighbors.
What's really strange about that, I went there again today and walked it, even though the house to the west is 2.5 to 3 feet down, the grade goes higher before it goes down. It's like our house is in a bowl. If you go out there, you can see that. And significantly, there's a group of trees that are about a foot higher than our house. And then it goes down. So our engineer says by raising it a foot, it won't have any effect on the neighbor to the lower side. And it certainly won't have any effect on the neighbor to the high side.
And there are ways of swaling that, there's certainly plenty of room.
Could you bring up the grading plan and just a couple questions on that? So I understand about trying to raise it up and work with the, the drainage and all that, but sometimes as you go up with it, you create other problems. And when you take a look at the garage elevation of, I think it's 88.8, and you have almost 2 feet of slope on that apron right there at the garage, and then there's another 1 foot drop right next to the driveway. So you almost have 3 feet of elevation change right there, and realistically, they're probably not gonna build the driveway with that much cross slope on it, so you might end up with a situation where you need a wall or something.
Well, we want to raise it as little as possible.
Yeah, so maybe if you just take another look
If
at
we
it.
could leave it where it is,
Consideration.
that's great if it works engineering-wise. He's saying we have to raise it some. The old foundation was apparently sunk, so if
Yeah.
we just matched what they had when they originally built it, it would be up 6 inches.
Yeah,
Do we want to raise it a little more than that? He's proposing 11.5 inches, so.
well, maybe that's the solution. I think that, I think everybody's just saying, let's at least take another look at
I
it, make
think,
sure it's the correct
I
thing.
think if our engineer works with your staff, and they can all agree, as an architect, I'll go along with whatever they come up with.
Yeah.
The amount of impervious improvements now, and this is drastically changing as well. You have a gravel driveway in the existing building. You have an existing building that has a smaller footprint than a replacement structure. Now you're doing a horseshoe-shaped drive. Have you considered maybe changing the materials from asphalt or doing away with this horseshoe drive? Because, I mean, that's a lot of improved area now compared to what's out there.
We did entertain 4, if not 5, different driveway layouts and presented them to the client. This driveway layout worked the best for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, it impacted the least amount of trees. Didn't have to move the house back, and it allowed us to an easier access in moving the water, because if you do look at the black arrows on there, immediately to the left of the house where that one arrow is going back, that whole peninsula there is currently a foot to 15 inches higher than the existing house. So it's already creating its own little berm to bring the water down and around. We looked at a center courtyard, we looked at a horseshoe. It just didn't seem appropriate for the siding of the house with the natural feel. It felt like we were trying to put in a very modern, very formal courtyard in the front of a big house on a very natural setting. So that's how we ended up with this driveway layout.
Okay, thank you.
Have you given any consideration to cladding the stoops?
We haven't really gotten that far yet. I mean, initially, no, the client just said, you know, can we pour them in concrete and talk about that, you know, when we get to that point, so
We'd certainly
we can bring
entertain
that,
that.
you know, to their attention and ask.
Now, with this site plan, how much more closer to Everett is this house than the other two
The other
next to it?
two are the existing, it's in the same, front line is in the same of the existing
Well,
house.
the garage part sticks out, is a little closer, and the main body of the house is about where the other house was. And we have it, don't we have it superimposed
I
on
don't have
it?
it compared to the other two.
Is your question to the neighbors?
It looked to me like, it seems like it is gonna be closer to Everett than what's currently there.
I think the front of the main body of the house is almost exactly where this house, front is.
Do you have something that shows this superimposed, the new structure on the old one?
We actually have it, I believe it's in your packet, but
It is
not in the
too?
presentation, I think.
A1, like,
The actual set is page
Yeah, A1.
A1, yep, thank you.
Yep.
There are some, a very significant oak tree over in the rear yard, not too far from the home. I mean, it's far enough that it won't hurt it, but our goal was not to impact those oaks. So as close as we could get it to Everett, we wanted, so with being reasonably close to where it was. So the further back we put it, the more it could impact the best trees on the lot.
Another of the staff comments was the west facade and the blank brick wall on that facade. Any thoughts on addressing that?
Yes, we did address that. Let me show you what we did. Can we look at the straight-on elevation? No, our straight elevations. Go back. There we go. Okay, so this whole area is what they were speaking of. Before we changed it, there was no window here, and there was no window. This is the side of the garage that I talked about, that there is a window. This is the back of the master bed wall. We really don't want any windows there, and I think that's a side that hardly anyone would ever see. And I don't really mind the fact that it's not a large area that's blank, but we did address, there's windows around it, it's just there are no windows on that particular wall.
We did discuss with staff the option of potentially lessening the massing of that by adjusting the landscaping, whether we put an espalier, whether we put, you know, a more significant tree in there that might not be a deciduous, it might be more of an ornamental, smaller evergreen that would not would not in the future come to harm the house. So we have, you know, discussed with staff to figure out ways to soften that.
Well, overall, the home is crying for softening of, by plant materials. So Jason, why don't you take us around the house very quickly? How do you propose to soften?
Okay, because it is, I say from a landscape perspective, we are in the really preliminary phases. We did a very basic deciduous with some small evergreen screening along the way. On the front corner of the garage, we have a couple native shrubs, ornamental, 4 to 5 foot to start out. Maybe they'd mature at 12, 14 feet. Again, not to be competing with the roof lines. I do feel that from the street and where it is, there are some areas that, especially with that front facade, we don't want to bring a lot of vertical element with the the landscaping, and then we come down and play underneath the windows with the dwarf evergreens. We do have, then when you go to the left, there are some native shrubs out in front of, again, to match it in front of the master bedroom side, the west side of the house. The back, again, is simple. Right now, again, at the direction of our client and the homeowner, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible because we've got a couple things to consider from a landscape standpoint. It's heavily wooded, not a lot of great air movement. We are trying to work within the same footprint of the existing house, so we're not disturbing any of the existing trees. And that's why, as we discussed, again, with staff, how we'd work out the screening pertaining to, prior to the rough framing aspect. When we got it graded, we figured out where the actual, we can put it on paper, but as many of you are aware, once you get out on site and you start looking at 5 feet, on paper, it looks like a foot, and on site, it might be 2 inches. So that's how we were trying to rectify that problem, or address it, I should say. Any other questions?
Did you have samples of the brick and any other materials with you at all, or?
We have some materials. We don't have the brick sample as we have the examples of the colored pictures of the homes in Lake Forest, which we like that brick, but we haven't got far enough to actually have a sample.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of my questions I was going, actually. That's helpful because it seemed as though the colored pictures you had were a little different than the rendering. The rendering looked a little more gray than maybe...
It may have something to do with the color palette in our computer.
Okay.
We try to match, but sometimes it doesn't come out exactly right, so...
Okay. So the brick would be more, not the rendering per se, more the example.
We didn't want a white brick, but we want a lighter brick with some warmth to it, some variegated texture. It's hard to say exactly what that is until, we actually have a little brick sample, or taking the picture of that home on the lower left was as close to what the owner is trying to achieve.
Okay.
As far as the stucco and the colors, I have, this is that LP Smart Trim, and here's a sample of real cedar. This is textured on one side and smooth on the other, and you can use either side. This is probably a color of the cladding of the window, similar to what we'd like to use. It's a warm taupe. And the stucco would be something like that. So the only thing, I don't have a Weatherwood asphalt sample with me, and I don't have that or the brick.
And Steph, have we ever approved that material, the LP Smart Trim at all, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, that hasn't been a material that's been presented to the board.
Okay. Ross, have you used that material?
No.
Does anybody have any misgivings on this material on the board?
I've never used it, and so with our design guidelines, we're usually favored to lead towards natural materials. I would not lean towards approving that.
Okay. Other questions to the staff or the petitioner? Okay, great. Now's a chance for anybody from the public to come forth. Okay. Seeing no one, any other input from the staff at all? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now it's time for the board for internal discussion.
I think it meets criteria certainly for demolition of existing.
Yeah, I agree with that. How do people agree with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
The home, I certainly would like to see, I made my comments. To me, it's stark and could use some softening. There's a lot of edges to it. Without expressing myself too heavily in that regard, I think that's my feeling.
Okay. Ted, what are your thoughts?
I would like the opportunity to see plans for a revised garage roof elevation. I don't necessarily think it's necessary to push the garage back. I think there are ways that the design might be able to accommodate having the garage as far forward as it is with an alternative roof line.
Perhaps the offset that was suggested.
Okay, what do you think, any thoughts?
I think as the architect has stated, the home it's being designed in a neo-eclectic English design, and I think I would lean towards them perhaps looking at something more of following a more traditional country design, something more traditional to Lake Forest. I mean, these neo-eclectic homes, were kind of like 1980s homes, and they're taking bits and pieces of traditional style, but perhaps by bringing in detailing of, the traditional English country home, some of these issues with the overlapping gables, could potentially be resolved. I see a lot of roof on this front elevation, and especially with it being an asphalt type material, I have concerns about that, so I think that's something that I think can be addressed. The long garage elevation is also a concern. I think that should be brought forth with some other kind of ideas. But the front elevation, and then, even there should be some consistency with the detailing. The gables one has a window, one has louvers, one doesn't have anything in it, so. But I think the front elevation definitely could be softened.
Okay.
I
Michael?
have the same concerns as Monica just raised, and with the east elevation, that is a long roof section that we have there, so nothing more to add than that.
Okay.
Based on the letter from the neighbor, number one, I'm concerned about the grading. That's an issue. I agree with what everybody said. I'm really concerned about all the roof lines, which create the massing issues. I agree with Monica that the LP Smart Trim is just not an approved material at this point. And then, last but not least, the garage itself, Michael brought up a big point, which is, suppose that front vegetation gets cleared in the future. That garage is gonna look enormous from the streetscape. And we've had that problem with some of the houses we've looked at in the past where the garage all of a sudden becomes bigger than the house. And I think it's really important, not only that issue, but then the issue going around the side of it with the long roof line. That's what I got.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. I think that garage, I don't like it forced so forward. You have a large lot here. I think there's something that can be done to be pushed back a little bit. Classic styling, as Monica indicated, I think typically is preferable, and it works in the long run. But I can't support the petition there. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. But I do appreciate, it sounds like the petitioner is willing to look at changes. It's a beautiful lot, great neighborhood. I think the materials are nice, except for the that synthetic materials, but I think you're on the right color palette, the warmth. I think you're on the right path here, but there's some improvements I think that can be done. I think you're going to get a better product at the end of the day, and I think we continue this petition subject to the other board members' approval on that.
I agree.
Okay?
Agreed.
Okay.
Can I move for the demolition?
Do we want to move the demolition, or do we want to wait until we actually see the replacement structure?
It would be appropriate to continue the entire petition and then take action on both items at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that being said, do we have a motion?
I'll move for the continuance of the petitions.
Okay,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Okay. See nothing. Actually, also any other additional information from the staff? Okay, seeing none. Do we have a move for adjournment, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.
What is it?